Good afternoon and welcome to Quick Connect. We will get started in just a few moments. Before we begin today, I just want to let all the audience members know that we are streaming live on Facebook and this session is being recorded. If you have any questions today, you can go ahead and drop those questions in either the comment section of Facebook or in the Q&A of the Zoom function. So welcome today. I'm excited to announce our topic for today. We'll be talking about selling on social, tips for marketing and for marketplace. I'll be inviting my guest speakers to join me in our talk in just a few moments. They're joining me from the PA SBDC Digital Services Center of Excellence, and we're excited to have them. Before we begin, I'd like to just introduce the SBDC and some of our services. You're joining the Penn State SBDC today, but we also have representatives from SBDCs from Pitt and Temple. And some of our services that we offer as an SBDC are free, confidential one-on-one business consulting services, training, information, resources, and referrals. So if you're a small business listening today or someone looking to start a small business and you're interested in any of these areas of expertise, please get in contact with us either by finding our information on our Facebook page, or at the end of the talk, I will put our contact information into the chat as well as into the up on the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen so we can get started with our talk and I can introduce our guest speakers. Welcome to my guest speakers. We have Victoria Hassett from the Pitt SBDC and Diaz from the Digital Services Temple SBDC. Welcome, ladies. Thank you for joining us. Victoria, do you want to start and tell us a little bit about you? Tell us about your work you do at Pitt and also a little bit about your background.
Okay, so absolutely. Thanks for having me today. I appreciate it, Elizabeth. So my name is Victoria Hassett. I'm with the University of Pittsburgh Small Business Development Center. I came to Pitt in the SBDC as the child of a business owner who was a client of the SBDCs for many, many years. So I was kind of baptized by fire in that. A lot of the work I do, so I manage our student consulting team or the Emerging Enterprise Program. So that's a lot of any new type of service that we're trying or considering doing in the SBDC usually goes through the team of students first to be vetted and kind of trial by error, more or less practice. But we do a lot with SEO in our organization, so search engine optimization.
Nice, yeah, and I actually have a meeting with a representative from your SBDC on Friday to talk about SEO. I know you guys do great SEO reports, and so you can get connected if you're listening to this talk to an SEO report through your business consultant through your SBDC. Leonis, you want to introduce yourself, tell a little bit about your background, and you're with Temple SBDC, so tell us what you guys do out there, and go ahead.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for having me. My name is Diaz, and I am a bilingual business consultant at the Temple Small Business Development Center. I'm also the in-house marketing specialist as well. I've been with Temple SBDC for a little over a year now, helping businesses start, grow, and survive. But outside of the SBDC, I also have my own marketing and consulting firm for minority-owned businesses. I have a bachelor's in communication from FIU and a master's in entrepreneurship from UCL in London. A little bit about the Temple SBDC and our centers of excellence. Our service territories include Philadelphia, Lower Montgomery, and Lower Bucks County. In terms of the Center for Digital Transformation, we assist small businesses with migration to e-commerce sites and help them enhance their SEO so that they can drive more traffic to their website. So we're helping a lot of businesses work on their digital storefronts so that they can spur e-commerce activity. And we also are supporting clients on implementing or integrating scheduling systems, making repairs on their websites, and really just helping businesses thrive, especially right now.
Yeah, and I know that we talked a bit yesterday about some of your tips on marketing and really what you're working a lot with small businesses right now is making sure that their marketing game is in order. So you told me you have like a top 5 rule of thumb when talking about marketing. Can you kind of run us through that list and describe those top 5?
Yeah, of course. So I essentially have 5 rules for marketing. So the first is that, you want to think about marketing as everything that touches your customer. So it's not just, the product, but it's also your customer service, your pricing, your sales, your social media, your PR, your blogs, your website, payment process, your onboarding process, your emails, really everything. So you want to make sure that you're planning all of your brand touch points so that you can create that brand love. Number 2, remember that your customers have all of the answers. I have a lot of client meetings where, my clients are asking me, okay, well, what should I be saying on social media? Or, what should I be writing on my website? Or what should I be writing a blog about? And I can tell you, but you could also be having these conversations with your customers because they really do have all of the answers. And so if you're ever unsure of what you should be saying or what you should be building or how to say something or where to say something, make sure that you're asking your customers by engaging them in conversations, sending out surveys, or learning more about them through market research and observations. Number 3, make sure that you're clear on your onlyness. So make sure that you understand what makes you unique or different or better, faster or cheaper than your competitors, and make sure that you're highlighting this in all of your marketing efforts. So your social media, your website, and any other marketing materials like flyers, brochures, etc. Number 4, in terms of marketing, you really want to start with the end in mind. So really think about what your goals are for that campaign or for that plan or for that strategy. Because if you don't know what you want to achieve, how are you supposed to actually achieve it? So when you're creating these goals or crafting these goals, make sure that they're smart, make sure that they're specific, that they're measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. And then number 5, make sure that you're measuring everything that you can and that you're learning all of the time. So for every activity that you're doing, you should know how you're going to measure it afterwards. And so one thing to keep in mind is that you never want to invest in terms of marketing, you don't want to invest in too many things at once, because then it just becomes really hard to track where customers are actually coming from. And so I usually tell clients that, if they are going to be investing in a Facebook campaign, for instance, that they should start small, maybe just investing $5 and only running that campaign for a few days or for a week and only doing that so that they can see what their return on investment is actually like.
Yeah, those are great tips. And I think we are going to talk a little bit more about making sure we measure our successes and really taking a look at metrics a little bit later in the talk. And so the research shows that understanding your customer is key to sales. You really drove that home, talking to your customer, and we do a lot here in Penn State with customer discovery and teaching not only startups, but businesses that are currently in business as well, to just keep talking to your customers. And learning that tool can sometimes be difficult. We talked a little bit about the idea of this persona, creating a persona around what your customer might be like. Can you describe for us what a persona is? For some people, that might be a brand new term.
Yeah, so buyer personas or customer personas, they're the same thing. They're essentially just like semi-fictional representations of your ideal customers based on data or research. And they really just help you focus your time on qualified prospects. They help guide your product development to suit the needs of your target customers. And they allow you to align all of your work across your organization, anywhere from marketing to sales to service. So really, your buyer personas really help you better understand who your customers are, and it just makes it easier for you to tailor your content, your messaging, any future developments in your products or service, so that they're actually meeting the specific needs of your target audience. And so, the strongest buyer personas are based on market research or insights that you've gathered from your customer base through surveys or interviews or, phone calls or one-on-one conversations. And again, remember that your target market or your buyer persona should be definable. It should be meaningful. It should be sizable. And then, of course, reachable. You should be able to reach these people, whether it's online or offline. But really, all you're creating a buyer persona or customer persona is just a fancy way of saying, you're creating an avatar based on a group of customers.
Yeah, and I encourage any businesses listening to this to have fun with that. That can be a fun activity to create a persona. I know that we have worked through different businesses, bigger organizations that have examples of personas. So if that's something that someone's listening in to this call and they'd like to work through creating a persona and learn more about personas, that's something we all do as business consultants. We help our clients with that. So I find that it's interesting to do the persona work, but what about if you have more than one persona? Can a business have more than one persona that they're trying, or more than one avatar? It sounds kind of like a bit of a multi-personality disorder, but is it possible?
Yeah, it is possible. Depending on your business, you could have, as few as 1 or 2 personas and as many as 10 or 20. But you really, if you're new to all of this, you really want to start small. So start with one buyer persona and then expand from there. Some of the advice that I give to my clients is that they can model this after real people that they know. And so, to give you an example, let's say that your target customer, or, you're looking to target a stay-at-home mom. So you might give her a name, something like Sally, the stay-at-home mom. But you want to make sure that you're also making note of some more specific information on Sally, such as demographic information, so her age, her gender, her income level, race or ethnicity, education level, also her geographic location, right? The city that she's based in, whether she lives in a suburban area or a rural area, what the climate might be like for her. Also think about her lifestyle. And you could also do this for businesses as well, right? It's not just for B2C businesses, it's for B2B as well. And so you'll want to look at, Sally's lifestyle, or if you're targeting businesses, you want to look at the business style. You want to look at, psychographic information such as their values or attitudes. You want to think about their purchasing patterns, their buying sensitivities, so that you can have a really great and accurate representation of who your customers are, just to make it easy for you to find them both online and offline.
Yeah, I think that's a great description of how to use this persona. I also tell my my clients when I'm working with them and we create a persona. Now, every time you're unsure about how to create a marketing campaign, ask if Sally would participate in it, or ask if Sally would buy this product if you're trying to launch a new product. And so, the more you know your persona, the more you can identify if your customer will participate in it without doing a ton of customer research.
Exactly.
So that becomes easier. Cool. We're focused on social media today, and we just kind of laid out some key aspects of just marketing. We just wanted to hit on some good tips on marketing. But do you have any tips for marketing your products online?
Yeah, so in terms of marketing your products online, and we discussed this a little bit yesterday, Elizabeth, where I was saying that a lot of my clients are really just starting off. Social media is very new to them. I also have a lot of older clients as well, who really just want more information on the basics of Facebook, or the foundations of Instagram, and just they're just new to everything. And so some of the advice that I give is, first start off by figuring out what platforms your customers are on, because, it's likely that they're not on all of them. And so you want to make sure that you're engaging with them and having conversations with them where they already are. But I usually give my clients the advice that they should be on the big 4 platforms, which are Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. So you should aim to at least have a presence on all of those. And if you're starting off and if your team is pretty small, it's only 1 person or 2 people or 3 people, I know that 4 platforms can be a lot to manage. And so the advice that I usually give is that you should focus on the ones that you actually have the time for, or focus on the ones that your clients are actually on. So if that's Facebook or Instagram, focus on those, but at least secure your username on Twitter and YouTube. And then, you could post something that says, hey, we're not super active on this right now. You could actually find us on Facebook or Twitter instead. Another piece of advice that I give is that if you don't have a website at the moment, make sure that you're purchasing that domain, again, so that you can secure that username for your own branding purposes. And then you can redirect that elsewhere, right? So if you don't have a website and you don't currently have the capabilities of selling your product or service online, okay, you can redirect that domain either to your Facebook page or your Instagram page, or another social media page. Or if you're ready to start promoting your products and services online, then you can set up either a Facebook marketplace profile or a Facebook shop, or you could have a Google shopping page as well. And if that is maybe too complicated, then you could even set up like an order form through Typeforms, and then you can redirect the domain to that as well. And so there's a ton of options for marketing your products and services online and also selling online. It just depends on your capacity, your bandwidth, and also your overall budget.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think I've worked with clients, quite a few clients actually, who were already in business but didn't secure those names. And so then they were trying to figure out, should I change my business name so I can get those names? So great tip there to secure those names as soon as possible. So if you're a business that's currently in business right now and you're listening and you don't have them on all those platforms, go grab them ASAP. But I also think it's a good thing to point out now is that the SBDC, we work with businesses at all phases, at all sizes, no matter how big or small. We walk you through all the steps that you need. So if you're listening to this and you need some type of one-on-one consulting, or just you don't even know where to begin, that we can help you and walk you through those steps. So we've talked a lot about just setting yourself up, understanding marketing in general, just an overview. But what about when we put an ad? And I'm going to bring in Victoria for this next question. So when we're talking about actually putting something on Facebook to draw people in to buy our products, or placing an ad, what kind of content should we be posting?
Again, I think it's also dependent on those personas too, with what they're looking for, or what those personas identify with. And what the goal of that ad or that boosted post or whatever the case may be, where you're really putting it together, what that ultimate goal is. Is it to just build brand recognition or awareness? Is to give your business a face? I think a lot of businesses make the mistake of not putting a face to their business or an identity to their business. It's not just their brand. People want to see what's behind that curtain. They want to know what the product looks like or what the production line is. I work with a lot of distilleries and wineries. Everybody wants to see what's behind the curtain in those facilities. And when they don't show that, they're really doing themselves a disservice. So just making them relatable and letting your neighbor know, hey, I exist, please support me as a business owner, is very helpful when you can give yourself a face on social media.
Yeah, we just finished up Small Business Saturday, although Small Business Saturday is going on all month long this year. So if you haven't had a chance to interact with a small business yet for holiday shopping, I encourage you to do so. But I think that's a good point. People are more likely to go and interact with the small businesses if they know the people, or if they've seen the story, or if they feel a connection. So making sure that the ads have an actual connection or a draw to them is so important. And so that's a great tip. Thank you. So when we're talking about audience, and then we talk about our content, we've kind of figured out, okay, we need to make sure it's personal, and we need to make sure that it has a purpose. Well, that's my question actually. Your ad should have a purpose, right? And so what should you consider when developing an ad as far as the purpose of the ad?
I think really, again, it goes into what is the ultimate goal, like Linnea said. Leon, I apologize, I got your name wrong. Had said previously, it's what's the goal? What's the ultimate goal of this ad? Are you just looking to gain more followers? And what's that ultimate number you want to be? And then you can really work on your budget from there. So are you wanting to see a return on investment from ads? You want to translate directly into a sale? Are you wanting to get more interaction and more just in general followers or likes on your platforms? What are you ultimately trying to do with that ad, or what's your ultimate goal and purpose? So once you understand that, I think you can also target the content better too.
Yeah, that's a great point. Just making sure that you understand before you put the ad out what you want the customer to do. I think a lot of people are like, well, I just want them to become like me and become a customer. But do you want them to buy a product? Do you want them to just sign up for an email list? Do you want them to just come to your website and just become aware of your product? I think there's so many different reasons you could have an ad. So mapping that out ahead of time is really important. So we talked about the purpose of the ad, but there's another key component of an ad that we need to consider, and it's called a call to action. And so can you describe a little bit, and maybe Leanna, so you have some thoughts on this as well, but what is a call to action, and how should you use it on a social media ad?
So a call to action is really asking whoever's seeing that ad to interact with you or to do something. There's going to be an interaction or something for them to do. So either it's they click on it and it launches them to your website. So maybe you're calling them to visit your website or show an interest in an event. I know a lot of businesses that do events or participate in group events, I guess. Or I think we had a maybe 6 months ago, no, 8 months ago now, we had a poker crawl in one of our communities that we work with. And that was the big thing. They came together. It was 5 businesses that came together and they did a poker crawl. So it was a call to action for just sharing the event or liking the event. So it's really a matter of what are you wanting them to do based on that ad that you're putting out there? And how is that going to translate into those metrics or those numbers that you're watching? But it could also be something subtle.
Yeah, to add to what Victoria has already said, yes, a call to action is essentially what you want the customer, what the action that you want the customer to take, and how you want them to take it. On an ad, it can be as simple as 2 words, so something like just buy now, or a sentence or two. Something like I love learning about marketing. And if you want to learn more, you can subscribe, or if you want to learn more about our business, you can subscribe now to this post, or you could download this form, or whatever else. So it's just the action that you want the end user or the customer to take, and how you want them to take it.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that some of the clients that I've worked with before have put out ads, but forgotten the call to action. And so, making sure that you have a clear call to action, like click here, buy here, do something here. That's an important part of the ad, because eventually we'll talk about tracking metrics and seeing who clicks those buttons and why they click those buttons. So we'll get to that in a little bit. But before we get to that, let's talk about costs, because we're kind of building the ad as we talk. And so we've decided what the ad's going to, who the ad's going to be for, what kind of content it's going to have, what the call to action is, but how do we know how much to spend on the ad? And Victoria, maybe you want to start, but be honest, if you have some follow-up on that would be great.
Typically, especially if an ad is going to be promoting a product and the call to action is to buy a product or a service, I like to see $2 to $3 in revenue resulting from that ad, because you want to at least break even and pay for the ad. And then you need to take into consideration other things like your cost of goods sold, any operational costs, the time that you invested in creating that ad and monitoring that ad. So just making sure that you're at bare minimum breaking even and that it's effective. And you can monitor so you're following that ad campaign and seeing how it's performing. What are those sales being generated? Again, if that's your ultimate goal. If you're wanting to just gain some likes, it's fine to spend $5 and equate that to 20 likes or 30 likes on your page. But again, it's understanding the call to action and then just monitoring everything and understanding what a budget is.
Right. That's a really interesting point. And we didn't really touch much on figuring out who to target in the ad. And I don't know if either of you have any tips on that, but how do you decide who to target in the ad to make sure that your money is being spent effectively? Either of you?
I think the easiest thing, again, is going back to those personas. What are those personas like? What does Sally look like? What are her interests? What platform is she on? What's her age? What's her zip code? There's just some very basic generic demographic information you can use to start targeting. But then in some cases, you can also target based on other things that they are interested in. So if they are interested in certain political figures, or if they're interested in other businesses. So maybe they are a follower of your competitor. So there are some other ways to really try to target somebody who may have an interest. But the more you target, the more costly it does become.
Interesting. Okay, so these are all options on Facebook. You can target these kind of things through Facebook, but you want to make sure that you understand that cost is going to rise with the more targeted you're going to get. Okay.
Yeah, and to add to Victoria's points, going back to what I said earlier, you in terms of how much to spend on an ad, you really want to start small, especially if you're new to all of this. You can start off with $5, $10, and then maybe increase that to $25, $50. But yes, as you target, as your ads become a little more targeted, it is going to become more expensive to reach that audience. And make sure that you're not just looking to create an ad or advertise on Facebook because everyone else is doing it, right? There has to be a reason for why you've decided to create an ad on Facebook or Instagram or whatever else in the first place. And it really should go back to your customer, right? Is your customer on Facebook? Is your customer going to be seeing that ad? And if so, as you're filling or as you're creating the ad and developing that on whichever platform, you're going to go through it and you're going to, add demographic information, geographic information, psychographic information, and then, you'll be adding in more information about the values and interests of your potential customer so that it increases the likelihood of that person being reached on those platforms.
Those are great tips. And I think if this seems to anybody listening or tuning in like a lot, you can get with a business consultant at the SBDC and we can talk you through, because everybody's circumstance is going to be different. What works for one business is not going to work for another business. And you really need to understand with your budget and your own circumstance, how to launch these ads, or even if you should be launching ads. And that's another point to kind of discuss. I mean, sometimes you can throw a lot of money at ads and them not pay off for you. As Victoria pointed out, you want to make sure that you're bringing in 2 to 3 times in sales as you place those ads. So can we talk a little bit about the difference between an ad and a boosted post? Because I know this is kind of a confusing topic for a lot of people. What is a boosted post and how is that different from an ad? And maybe Victoria, you want to start out?
So boosted post is something that either you already posted or you plan on putting a little bit of money behind it. When you pay for that, you're paying for priority in a Facebook or Instagram or social media algorithm. So it's going to prioritize you. So maybe you're not showing up in all of your followers' news feeds currently. So boosted post, if you're paying for it, will allow you to show up in more news feeds, or it might show up in friends of people who follow you through social media, where an ad is very strictly targeted. You have that access to really to add all that targeted information, and it has a bigger impact. They don't have to like you in order to see it. They don't have to have friends that like you in order to see it. Generally, you'll get a bigger impact if it is a friend or somebody that does follow your business currently. But it doesn't, that's the biggest difference, I think, is just who the followers are.
Yeah, to give a short answer, a boosted post is just a quick way of putting some money behind an existing post on your Facebook page, while a Facebook ad is something that's it's a more thought out campaign that you can create in the Facebook Ads Manager. And so, through the Ads Manager, and if you're creating a Facebook ad, you get more customization features essentially.
Okay, interesting. And so with a boosted post, can you give an example of why a business would do that? If it's just going in front of the same audience, will it increase awareness? Is it better for perhaps customers that are already existing to re-engage them? Do you guys have any tips on how to use a boosted post?
So at least when I've done some social media management, we've done a lot of boosting posts to increase our audience effectively. So if we're doing a big push to get more followers, that generally has been very impactful for us. Or if we're promoting a special event, usually there's a special thing that we want to promote or highlight. And again, it's more brand awareness and less of a call to action usually.
Okay, that's a good tip for that. Okay, so let's break it down a little bit more into, you mentioned before when we were talking about ads, keeping your eye on metrics. So what are we looking for when we're talking about metrics and knowing if your ad's performing well? And if your ad's not performing well, can you do something about it?
So at least for the ad, you can track and see, it's going to be based on that call to action and what that purpose of the call to action, those goals were. You can get it's got to be close to 70 or 80 different charts that you can pull from your ads or your boosted posts with your metrics or through Facebook Manager. And sometimes it might be a little tricky to see what the impacts are unless you know what you're looking for and exploring it. But just monitoring that consistently, seeing what hours people are seeing it, how are they interacting? Are you getting a lot of unfollows that way? Maybe you had a really bad message in there. Or how many people are clicking on it and going directly to your website? Are they going to your website through the Facebook ad, where just that little pop up on your screen, where they're not leaving the Facebook ad at all? Or are they physically going on a browser to your website? So you're wanting to see where the traffic is going and how they're interacting with your post.
Yeah, I think that's important with the ad. I know we talked previously about the metrics being important to keep an eye on. And so you also mentioned to me, which I thought was a good tip to share, is that if the ad's not performing well, you can change it, right?
You can change it. It doesn't mean that what you had previously goes away, but if it's not performing well, maybe you do go in and edit the phrasing, or you see like a big fat grammar error right in the middle that you missed. Maybe you spelled your name wrong in it. And I mean, even our organization spelled our name wrong on our window when we moved offices. So it happens.
Yeah.
So you do have the ability to change it if it's not getting you, or you can stop it early if it's spending too much or you're not getting the results you wanted.
Okay, great tip. I like that, because I do think the edit button on social media has been so great for small businesses, well, for everybody. But, as you said, we do make mistakes, and sometimes we can't even see our own mistakes before we publish. So editing is not going to affect your ad. That's a great tip to give. So if we could shift gears just a little bit and talk about selling on social. So we've talked a lot about placing ads, but what about products and how you can bring your products to social media? Do you have any tips on selling on social?
My number one thing is to always make sure your payment processing is secure. That's the number one. Like, it doesn't matter if you're doing tens of thousands of sales in one day. If you don't have secure payments, it's a matter of when you're going to have fraudulent charges and deal with that. And you don't want to have to deal with that headache as a business owner. So whatever you do online, just make sure that your payment is secure. It has a secure website, which if you're not familiar, it's at HTTPS versus just regular HTTP. From there, do some due diligence looking at whoever is managing your credit card processing. So not all popular credit card processing businesses have very secure processing features, and you might have to pay extra. So just verify with whoever is managing that for you that it is a secure payment process, or do you have to pay extra for it?
Yeah, I actually did a talk a few weeks ago with a credit card processor, and we gave some tips on credit card processing and how important it was to watch, because beyond just fraudulent activity, people can go in and steal data, and they don't even know what type of data they're stealing. They're just going in to steal data to take it, and then they'll do something with it later. So whether they're stealing your credit card numbers of your clients, or if they're stealing the addresses and personal information of your clients, they may choose to use it at a later time. So protecting those transactions is incredibly important. What about you? I know, Leannis, you work with some different types of businesses, and some of them may even be starting off selling on social before they even have a website. So any tips there for starting off on selling on social?
Yeah, I was actually going to chime in. So in terms of, selling online, I think that the number one tip that I can give is taking the time to invest in high quality images and videos. I think that, a lot of the clients that I work with and a lot of business owners try to get out of doing this, especially at the beginning, but you really want to think about, even your own like buying habits online. I'm sure that you're buying when you're buying things online, you're buying things that have pictures, that have really great product descriptions, that, will get to your home in a timely manner or to your office in a timely manner. And so, investing in faster shipping and having really great customer service is all going to be really important for your customer. But I think that the biggest tip that I can give is making sure that you have high quality photos, high quality videos, so that you can market and promote that product or service. So investing either into like product photography or a personal branding photo shoot, or even if you just end up purchasing like a DSLR camera or borrowing that from someone else so that you can take pictures of your product or yourself or whatever else, it's really going to differentiate you from others online.
That's a great tip, because now a lot of people are shopping online, especially now that we've gone through COVID. And so they really want to see the product. So making sure that it's featured well is super important. So investing in the images, I like that. And I talk to my clients about looking at the competition, and you kind of alluded to this a little bit. If you look at the competitors' websites and you see how their images look and yours aren't comparing, that's going to be a big cue that you need to step up your game there. But also just looking at your competition in general, especially as what we've talked about today. Just look at your competition and see what they're doing and then do it better is kind of the number one tip I give to my clients.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, that's one of the tips that I give to clients as well, just making sure that they're keeping a pulse on their competitors. And so some of the ways that you can do that is signing up for their newsletters or following them on social media, or even like setting up a Google alert for your competitors so that you know what they're doing and how they're doing it and how they're engaging with their customers.
Right, exactly. And that's all fair game. There's nothing sneaky about it. It's what businesses do. So that's a great tip. So we talked a lot about selling on social. What other tools are out there for businesses that are looking at selling on social? I know that Lannis, you have some tips and tools for this. Do you want to kick us off with some of that?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
I was just asking about our other tools for making this easier or for selling on social. Do you have any tools for the audience?
Yeah, of course. So one of the things that I'm always kind of raving about or talking about is having a social media management platform. So something like Hootsuite or Buffer or Sprout Social. There's a ton of options out there. If you just Google, social media management platforms, you'll be able to find a ton of different options. My favorite is Buffer, but that's really just because I find Buffer to be the most intuitive, the most simple out of all of the options to use. But a social media management platform essentially just allows you to manage all of your different profiles and accounts. It allows you to schedule posts in advance. And so for those of you, business owners who are short on time, who have really small teams, or it's just, they're just solopreneurs who are just doing it all by themselves, a social media management tool allows you to kind of help to get some of that help or support that you might be in need of. So yeah, I'm always raving about it. I tell all of my clients about social media management platforms because I do think that it just makes everything so much easier.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that sometimes when I talk to my clients, I'm like, well, there's tools that can do all the social media platforms at once. You just make one post and it goes to all. And it's like, I just gave them a huge gift, right? Because this is, knowing that you can post to all of them with one click, the same post, that helps to simplify things, because as entrepreneurs, we are short on time, right? And having to do, having something to simplify that is a gift. So what about you, Victoria? Do you have any tips for businesses for selling on social?
I think really just looking at what resources are available to you. Even Facebook and Google have some fantastic resources available to people who are really just doing that exploratory or getting started. Like Facebook, blueprint.com is owned by Facebook, and I send clients there all the time. They've got little videos, usually no more than 5 minutes, that explain how to get started, what something is. It's a tutorial, it's always up to date. Whereas if you're looking at something on YouTube and you're Googling like, hey, how do I do this on YouTube for Facebook? It might be 3 or 4 years old. So it's more up to date information. And they have really cool, I know I've watched videos on just how to add different graphics to my photos or my stories. So there are some really cool tools. If you don't know how to do something or don't feel comfortable doing it, there are some really great resources on there. Get Your Business Online by Google. I think it's also like Small Business Google at this point. They've had a couple brand names over the years, but they provide some website assistance and a lot of really good marketing tools and assistance as well through their website. So it's gybo.com. Oh, perfect. Thank you, Elizabeth. So
Yeah.
grow.google/small business.
Yeah. And I think that's a great point, that if you are looking to up your social media game or your Facebook game, go directly to Facebook's Learning Academy and learn it from them, rather than trying to search something out that might be outdated. Because it really, I think it was the beginning of 2020, Facebook changed the way it did everything, its algorithms and how it would put small businesses in front of their customers. And so you really need to stay on top of making sure that you're doing things correctly, especially if you're spending money on ads. So why not go right to Facebook and learn from their Facebook Blueprint Academy? And the same with Google. You want to make sure that you're doing your Google ads and interacting with your social, and that it all kind of goes together well, as far as in you're learning directly from the platforms. And they have tools, so that's great. I've just dropped the tools into the chat on Facebook and in the Zoom. So those are out there for our audience members. So let's just wrap up here, because we're going to move into some rapid fire questions so the audience can get to know you guys just a little bit better. But do you have any other final tips on selling on social, and any other tips that you from the Digital Services Center of Excellence can offer to our audience?
Yeah, I can go first. I really want to make sure that anyone listening today, that I think if there's one takeaway or one tip that I could give, is making sure that you know who your customers are. I have a lot of conversations with business owners, and most people don't know who their customers are. And so it's really important, in order to grow your business, in order to be successful, you need to know who that customer is, as if it was, your best friend or your mom or one of your siblings. Like, you need to know everything about this person, and also know that your customer is not everyone. I've jumped on a bunch of, Zoom calls or phone calls with clients, and I'll ask them who their customers are, and they say, I can sell to anyone or everyone. And the reality is that, while your product or service might appeal to the masses, or might be, something that fills a void or a need for most people, the reality is that, you're not, when we go and market your product or service, we can't target everyone, because that's just going to be complicated. It's going to be expensive, and it's going to be really hard to track. And so make sure that you know who your customers are. You need to know what they want, how they behave, and what they can afford.
Absolutely. I think that's a great tip. And I would just like to add to that, also know your competition, because I work with a lot of clients who think they don't have competition. And so everybody has competition. They're going to spend their money somewhere else, your clients, if they're not spending it with you. So make sure you identify the competition, as well as really, customers number one, because if you don't have customers, you don't have a business. But also make sure you are asking yourself about your competition. And so let's go to Victoria. Victoria, do you have any other tips, last minute tips from for our social media talk?
Constantly monitor and be nimble with what you see and learn. You may be doing exceptionally well on something like Amazon one month, and the next month it might be completely dead, and you might have an inverse for your own personal website for a business. So just monitor everything and be nimble enough to adjust. What you know in July is not going to be the same thing that you know in December, or what's truthful for your business and how to reach your customer. And the same thing in February. It's going to change constantly. So keep an eye on your numbers and see how it's being impacted, both from your sales perspective to interactions, and then adjust accordingly.
Yeah, I think that's a great tip as well, because we have to be able to not just set it and forget it as business owners. Unfortunately, we have to keep a finger on the heartbeat of our business in all areas. And so marketing is one of those areas that is really important, just also to make sure you're not throwing money down the drain for ads that aren't performing well. So thank you for that tip. All right, let's transition into some rapid fire questions. I ask these every week of all our guests, and they're just fun questions to kind of get to know you guys a little bit better. And you both may have sort of answered this question a little bit in the last question, but let's start with Leonis. if the audience walked away from today's session with one key takeaway, what would you want it to be?
So yeah, I mean, I answered it with the last question. It's really about knowing who their customers are. And also, just remember that you need to adapt and be flexible and agile, especially during this time. And so, during the pandemic, it's kind of shifted everything. COVID-19 has shifted everything. A lot of businesses are being impacted. And so the way that you used to market your business is not the way that you should be marketing your business today. And so make sure that you, one, know your customer, of course, but also that you are kind of just transitioning with the times. And so during this time, you could be, offering help through your marketing, or you could be simplifying things for others, or you could be, sharing information about giving back, or, causes that you're supporting. You could be marketing other businesses. And then you could also just be sharing updates or good news, or, new operating hours, or whatever else. But, just know that your entrepreneur journey is going to have a lot of ups and downs. And right now, a lot of us are suffering from a down. And so just keep your head up, and then, make sure that you're adapting to new situations and just being agile.
That's a great point. And I think for the entrepreneurs listening to this who may be used to, it's worked for 25 years the way I've done marketing, and why should I change? I would encourage you to sign up with the SBDC and get a consultant that will walk you through and say, but it's okay. It's okay to change a little bit, because sometimes you just need to talk to someone and hear that everybody else is doing it. And even though we did it 25 years one way, now we have to change because things have changed. So I think that's a great takeaway. How about you, Victoria? Do you have a key takeaway from today you'd like to share?
I think again, it's just echoing like being nimble, being agile, and being able to make those adjustments. But then also remember to be smart about your goals. Make sure they're specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. Because if you're not doing that, you can't judge your successes and measure your successes. So just be smart about your goals and understanding the purpose of what you're doing.
Yeah, and I know it's easy as an entrepreneur just to rush through. Like I need to get sales going, and I have to also make sure my products are packaged and shipped. And so, but we can waste a lot of money, and we can put ourselves at a lot of risk if we're not setting out those SMART goals as you define. So great tip. All right, let's go back to Leonis. Who is your favorite entrepreneur and why?
Yeah, so one of my favorite entrepreneurs is Arlen Hamilton, which is the founder and managing partner of Backstage Capital. For those of you who don't know, Backstage Capital is a fund that's dedicated to bridging the gap between fundraising opportunities for founders who identify as people of color or women, and also founders who are part of the LGBTQ plus community. And she just has a really great story. She started the fund back in 2015 while she was also experiencing homelessness. And since then has been able to raise and invest millions of dollars in businesses from who are led by individuals of underrepresented groups. So I just love the story, love the mission and vision of the company as well.
Wow, I ask this question every week, and a lot of times it's been the American dream. Those people who've worked from nothing to something, and that is so inspirational. Victoria, how about you? Who's your favorite entrepreneur and why?
Roy Disney, so Walt Disney's brother. He was kind of the financial guy behind the dreamer. So for every dreamer entrepreneur you have to have somebody in the boat with you who can kind of reel you back in or say, okay, this is what you want to do. This is how we have to make it happen. So Roy was the brains behind the operation. Walt's the dreamer, Roy's the brains.
Yeah, I was reading an article the other day about entrepreneurs being artists, and the reason we pursue entrepreneurship is because it's our art and we love creating. And I thought that was a great way of describing it, because artists can also be kind of stubborn about following the rules, and we like to color outside the line. So having someone behind you that can really keep you in line, such as Roy, as you described, I think that's a great tip. All right, last question for Leonis. Can you describe your favorite small business experience?
Yeah, so I don't have one experience that comes to mind. I think and that's mostly not to say that I haven't had great small business experiences. I've just had a lot of them, and so I don't want to single out just one of my clients because all of them are really great. But for me, the best clients to work with are those who are patient, who are coachable, who listen, who are excited to jump on phone calls or Zoom meetings, who are passionate about their business, and then who are experts on their field and know their numbers. And of course, anytime that I'm talking to a client, I want them to feel safe and to feel like it's a safe space to kind of talk about their business, regardless of whether or not they don't know something. Or whether or not they think they're asking a dumb question or whatever the case may be. So I want them to feel comfortable and feel like they can trust me when we're working together. But working with someone who is an expert in their field and who knows their numbers, and if I ask them, how much did you make in revenue or how many customers do you have at the moment, and them being able to answer those questions, I think is always makes for a great experience.
Yes, that is true. And I think all our small businesses, especially during this time, have given us such inspiration as business consultants because they have stuck to their passion, even though it's been really hard. So that has been amazing. Victoria, why don't you finish this up and tell us about your favorite small business experience?
I think when it comes down to as a consumer, small businesses, I think my favorite experiences are always when the owner is involved. Like going on vacation, when we go away, we do try to support the small local businesses wherever we go. And it's amazing how many times we've gone to these, what you think are these big operations, and like the owner's still there. Like the owner greets you as he's coming into work in the morning. And I think again, when the owners take the time to greet their customers or their guests or their clients, whatever the case may be, and have just that conversation and make them feel welcome, that's establishing not just a leadership and an ownership of the business, like this is your child, but it's also setting the example for how you want your employees to treat your customers.
Yeah, and that just kind of ties together one of your tips that you had, which was make sure that the content that you're posting is personal because that's what the people are latching onto. They're latching onto these personal experiences with the small businesses. So thank you so much for that. And I'm going to go ahead and wrap us up. And I thank you both for joining us today. If you're listening to this and you're interested in getting in touch with a business consultant outside of the Penn State business SBDC, I'm going to drop in the PASBDC website, and you may be able to get in contact depending if you're closer to Temple or if you're closer to Pitt. You are matched with a business consultant that is in your geographical location. So if you're not in the Penn State area, you can definitely reach out or find your business consultant on this website. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and just talk a little bit about what's coming up. Thank you both for joining me. I really appreciate your expertise. It's been so great to chat with you, and I know our audience got a lot from our talk today. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about next week. We're going to be talking about the season of giving, how add-ons increase sales. So we're going to be talking a little bit about, whether it be your customer service, kind of that personal touch that we just talked about, or your packaging, or even just small little things that you can do to increase sales. Annie Hughes, the director of the Harrisburg Lunchbox, powered by Penn State, will be joining me tomorrow, and we will be discussing, or not tomorrow, next Tuesday at noon, we'll be discussing that. And just to finish up, I'd also like to add that you can get in touch with the Penn State SBDC on our website through email or phone. We're all doing virtual meetings right now, so these are our contact informations. But I also recommend that you follow us on social: Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. We have all the handles, as Leonis has recommended, but you can follow us on those social media platforms, and we love to give tips to small businesses. We connect them with resources, information, and different events that are happening that can really benefit small businesses in our network. So again, thank you so much, Leonis and Victoria. I really appreciate you joining me today, and thank you to our audience. We'll see you next week on Quick Connect. Have a good day.
Thank you so much for having us. Thanks.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.